Hello and welcome to Luxury Redefined with Dr. N. I'm your host, Dr. Nermeen. Let me start with a simple question. If luxury is everywhere today, where does its value really come from? And if it's no longer just about objects or ownership, what actually gives it meaning? In this episode of Luxury Redefined with Dr. Nermeen, we explore luxury as a category of products, but also as a system of meanings, desire, and identity that shape how people relate to brands and aspiration. As luxury becomes more visible and more accessible, ideas like authenticity, symbolism, and personal relevance move to the center of how consumers experience brands. So luxury today is increasingly shaped by perception and emotions and also experiences and material scarcity. We also explore the idea of liquid luxury, where luxury operates as a fluid system flowing through access, experience, and circulation rather than permanence. My guest today is Felicitas Morhart, Professor of Marketing at HEC Lausanne and founder of Swiss Center for Luxury Research. Felicitas is best known for reframing luxury as a system of meaning, desire, and identity, making her one of the most influential voices in luxury branding psychology. So rather than traditional luxury marketing, she looks into the deeper meaning of luxury as a system. Her research examines how consumers construct authenticity and how symbolism creates emotional value, and how luxury brands function as a system that must be carefully designed and protected. This conversation looks at how luxury works beneath the surface and what these systems must protect in order to endure. So let's begin. Hello and welcome to the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you here all the way from, you flew in today, or when was it you flew in?
I flew in on Tuesday already, but arrived midnight.
Where did you fly from?
From Geneva.
Oh, nice. So welcome to Dubai and welcome to the podcast, Luxury Redefined. Maybe it's an opportunity for you to introduce yourself to the audience.
Yes, with pleasure. So my name is Felicitas Morhart. I'm a professor at the University of Lausanne. For those who don't know, that's on beautiful Lake Geneva in Switzerland. And I'm specialized in luxury marketing. I also founded a research center. They're specialized in luxury marketing, which is called the Swiss Center for Luxury Research. And I co-founded an initiative for traceability in luxury, which is called Original Luxury, which has actually a dependence here in the Almas Tower in the DMCC.
Well, I look forward to attending one of your workshops here in Dubai in the future. So your journey has been quite interesting. I mean, can you tell us a little bit about your journey and what led you to study luxury from a deeper meaning, from psychological and symbolic meaning?
It was brought to me. I was originally studying brand authenticity, and the matter of authenticity, I find it a quest in personal life too. I think this is one of the most important things to do, but also one of the hardest things to do, to really get to know yourself. And so I came from that quest around authenticity, and then I was contacted by a UK publisher whether I'd be willing to edit a book on research on luxury branding. And then I thought, it's interesting. I was never positioned on luxury. But maybe they thought, well, somebody working on authenticity in Switzerland, that must be luxury. And then I gave it a thought and thought, well, that makes total sense. And I knew the community in the research area that worked on luxury. And so it was actually pretty fast that I could put together a table of contents and to edit this book. And that led me to really start this research center, because I realized there is not really an intelligence hub and academic knowledge around the topic. And it helped a lot to shape the credibility of this research field, because beforehand I thought it was a little bit like, doctoral students who are maybe not that serious but want to do something glamorous. They do luxury research, but not at all. It's a fascinating area.
Yes, you're right. 2 decades ago, there was hardly any literature on luxury. It was a struggle going into the British Library and trying to find something on the topic. And it was kind of a very under-researched, unheard of topic. And it's so great to see initiatives like yours with these research centers.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, it would be fantastic to do some sort of collaboration, especially with the region in Dubai as well.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
You know, people often think of luxury as symbolic or status signaling. What do you think is often the most misunderstood element of luxury?
From a consumer side?
Yes.
Well, you just mentioned it. I think for many people, luxury brands are first and foremost logos, and that you know and that you see everywhere, well, more and more. I'm not so sure that many people know what it all means in their origins. I think many luxury maisons have a beautiful story, and this is what makes them so meaningful and so rich. But I don't see that many people, at least entry-level consumers, who really care about the legends and the legacy of these brands. So from my point of view, the misunderstanding is still a lot. It's not just hip, demanded brand logos. It is a whole legacy that comes with it.
I totally agree with that. And what about misunderstood from the brand's point of view? Because that's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
How is it misunderstood from branding point of view?
I would even think that it's kind of the same thing. I mean, many of the founders of these maisons are not alive anymore. And they handed over a heritage which is being managed by managers. And managers normally are guided by performance sheets, by KPIs, by Excel sheets. And you have to, I mean, that's fair enough. These are companies that have to be managed. But management thinking is so different than luxury thinking, because luxury in its basis is more like art thinking, I would say, than pure commercial thinking. And as soon as you turn a luxury brand into something purely commercial, the brand equity is at stake. And I think that is the problem also for many managers, that the understanding for safeguarding a legacy and a value system is actually the most important. And then comes the quarterly reports.
You know, it's very interesting because in all of the research papers I looked at, I've always been fascinated with the contrast between the business side and the authentic, artisanal, artistic side, and how a corporate with profit expectations and deadlines, how they involve someone so artistic and, let's say, emotionally driven in terms of inspiration, like a perfumer. How do they involve him in the organization? And it's really fascinating, this polarity.
Yes. And that's the tricky part, right?
Yeah.
And some actually don't manage well.
Actually, in a podcast that I'm preparing is a solo podcast in French. And it's coming out soon. And what I talk about is the difference between an artist and an artisan. And I've been reading about this. It's very interesting. And it kind of circles back to what you were saying about managers, KPIs, expectations, reports. And then you have the authentic creations. You know, circling back to that, the difference is artisans are the ones who fulfill a demand. So you give them a requirement and they make it. They know how to make it really well. But an artist is someone who applies their inspiration into it as well. So many polarities that are quite interesting.
Absolutely. And oftentimes, I mean, it's very much right brain, left brain combination. And there is not so many people who are strong in both. So oftentimes you need a good team, a complementary team of people who can cover both together, but who find a common language so that they understand each other and that they have empathy with each other. And I think that is something where, again, many recruiting decisions don't pay enough attention. Like, are the people that we're hiring into this organization empathetic enough towards the other side? Like, no matter whether it's a manager, they need to have empathy for the artisan and for the artist or the creative director. And the creative director also needs to understand the requirements of managerial reality, but without being, without succumbing to it, right? And that is a perpetual fight that these companies have to deal with in their reality. And again, lately, I think the commercial side has taken too much space over the artistry and the artisan.
Yes, which actually leads me to my next thoughts, which is I see that you really, really zoom into authenticity, and it's actually how you began, you mentioned. So why do you think it's so important, especially now, for luxury brands to maintain this authenticity?
So this is maybe a very subjective way of putting it. I feel that many luxury brands are on the brink of losing their soul for commercial, let's say, greed. And that's when things go awry. It's when you're so much driven by profits, by the numbers, by growth, like, is the antidote of luxury, right? Growth without limits. And authenticity is at stake when you're trying to please everyone, and that is when you try to grow in markets or with customers that are actually not purely your customers, but you just try to please everyone. Then you're becoming a flag in the wind. You're just trying to please customers here, customers there, markets here. Let's take young generation, take their influencers to please them. Like, that is not coming from their identity. It's trying to adapt to the outside world. And this is when you start losing yourself. And that is the same with us human beings. If we try to please everyone, then we start losing ourselves in the other people.
Do you think brands at some level think about this? Because, I browse, I go around in the shops, the malls, and I see brands that are well known and have a specific style over the years, who suddenly would produce something that's adapted to the local culture, let's say, here in the region. Does that contradict with being authentic, do you think?
I think when you are globalizing a brand, of course, you have to adapt to the regional tastes. But as I said, there's a fine line in being respectful towards the local culture, because, of course, you want to be integrated in the local culture. And there is the saying, when you're in Rome, do as the Romans do.
Yeah.
And of course, your brand is a guest in a new culture. So you need to behave as a good guest in that culture and be welcoming of their traditions and learning and being interested about their culture. But at the same time, you should always be clear that I'm still a brand with another culture and with another asset that we bring to this culture. So I think there is a big difference between entering a culture and interacting with it to produce something unique and new with your identity, but with respect and real interest for the regional culture. Or you come to a new culture and you're trying to read it and opportunistically appropriate parts of that culture without the consent of that culture, and actually for sneaking in to please the people or to mimic them. This is an inauthentic way of doing it. So it's always a way of with which intention are you doing it, and are you doing it wholeheartedly with real passion and real interest.
I see that a lot, especially with perfumes as well. So, for example, Guerlain have a specific style of perfume. If you smell any of their perfumes, you'll know this belongs to this brand. And then if they go to another culture, they might try to adapt, their compositions with ingredients that they probably never used before, like woody ouds and so on. So, and you would see the abayas with some brands and so on. So it's very interesting differentiating between adapting and appropriating. Very different. So with moving a little bit to identity and signaling and psychology, which you've looked at in depth in some of your papers. So first of all, let's explore the idea of humans using luxury to signal something. That's obviously existed forever. Since the dawn of time. So would you like to shed some light on how this is in the modern day being utilized?
So there are at least 3 perspectives that I think are still at work, and for a very long time they still will be. It is, first of all, the social signaling that we probably think the first of when we think about big logos and status symbols. And of course, we communicate to each other our rank in society. So it seems to be a human need for social order, that we need hierarchy. And I think every attempt to go into purely equal societies has never really worked out, because at least there are some people who can't stand this idea that we're all equal. And then, we all come back to this ordering and the hierarchies in society. And for those people who are in lower ranks of society, they have something to aspire to. So there is hope and there is some motivation by seeing people who are above you. Well, and the elites that are up there, they of course feel great because they have people below them. So there must be something in there for everyone. Otherwise, we wouldn't have this striving for hierarchy or reordering of society. And so status symbols are helping to find your position, to signal your position where you are in social hierarchy. Now, of course, with what we see lately, the democratization of luxury and the accessibility to luxury items that was not given a decade ago through secondhand luxury, renting luxury, sharing luxury, fake luxury. On social media, you cannot tell, is this a real Louis Vuitton bag or not? And then these orderings in the hierarchy, they're getting blurry. That is a little bit of a problem, that status signals lose their power or their efficacy for really signaling where we are in the hierarchy. So therefore, there is more and more the importance of self-signaling or inner-oriented signaling. So, of course, if I know I do have the real bag, well, even if the others don't know, because they think, well, who knows whether it's real or not, at least I know. And many people, of course, use luxury for showing themselves or rewarding themselves for what they have achieved. It can be a feeling of self-efficacy. It can be compensation for some weaknesses that we have or some parts of our identities that we don't accept. And luxury can be a very nice tool to, fill that gap. And I think every one of us is guilty of that because we're all not perfect. But that is a very strong way to soothe some inferiority feelings. And then finally, and I think this is a fascinating area, even if some people think this is politically incorrect, but to do research about that, but it is the evolutionary function of luxury. So luxury symbols are a superb symbol to signal fitness in the mating game. We all know these scenes from films like Pretty Woman, where Richard Gere comes in his Rolls Royce with a tailor-made suit, the rich guy, and she, the beautiful but poor prostitute. Like, this is so archaic, but we are still hardwired like that. And if you look around in Dubai, it's exactly the same thing. The women are beautiful and the guys are driving the big cars, and it works. It is something that is in our biological setup, that we react to specific signals that we are sending. And if a guy has the funds to buy really unnecessary things, that means this guy has a lot to give. And that is a signal to women biologically, which makes this man very attractive. As women, if they invest in their beauty and in their health and in their youth, that is a very strong signal towards men. And I know we have, you would say, I think we both are women who are self-made, right? And we do consume luxury. What does that mean in this biological game? And there's also research that shows actually what women signal to each other through luxury consumption, what they signal to men with it. So luxury does have a meaning in a very evolutionary function, apart from all social discourse that we have about emancipation and, of course, equal rights. But there is a voice in our head that is still very, very sturdy, telling us, I am the woman, you are the man, and there is something happening. Yeah.
I think that beautifully unearths the whole concept of luxury and what it symbolizes for us, for not just societies, but for humanity, for human behavior. You know,
Yeah.
I think you put it beautifully. You know, a man signals he has the resources to give, and the woman is attracted to that, and so on. So it actually holds a very important place in the structure of societies,
Yeah.
Globally, universally. Just zooming out a little bit of signaling, or it being some sort of identity signal, do you think that there's more and more movement towards inward satisfaction with luxury, or inward consumption?
Yes,
as well?
absolutely. I think this observation is absolutely to the point, because I feel we have climbed some sort of a maturity ladder of luxury consumption, at least in our spheres, where you somehow have seen everything already. Like, a restaurant, a cool restaurant, like here in Dubai, there's so much. There's even an overkill of beautiful spaces. Like, everything is beautiful. And then you think, yeah, cool place, but are you really blown away? Probably not, because you have seen it already and you're seeing it constantly. And well, with the hedonic adaptation principle, we get used even to the most beautiful things very quickly. And so you're always striving for something more, or something more sophisticated, or more special. And what is left after all the experiences, all the stuff, all the things that we can do with luxury? Well, what is left is ourselves. And I think we are more and more transforming ourselves into the luxury product. If you look into the funds that are being blown into longevity clinics and into people doing plastic surgery, comparing sleep scores. I mean, this is now, we are the luxury product, and who lives longer, better, is more healthy, the biological age. Yeah, this is something serious to compete on.
Actually, I don't want to open that one now because it goes to liquid luxury that I wanted to discuss later on. But before we go into that, in the book, the handbook that you edited and worked on, there's a lot of discussion around symbolism as well. So, and also emotional connection with the brands. So, and we see that a lot of luxury brands vary on that scale of the strength of this connection, emotional connection with the brand and the consumer. And the second part of the question is, in many cultures, different brands signal different things. They don't hold the same status symbols in different cultures. If we compare understated cultures, like in Switzerland, perhaps also in Scandinavian cultures. And if we compare this with a more overt, exhibiting of wealth in other cultures, how do luxury brands manage this landscape, of being in different cultures that mean different things?
It's a very smart question. Actually, I've never thought about this, but it's a very interesting thought. I think, so coming from symbolism, for me, symbolism refers to everything which gives a brand its meaning, or what meaning consumers give to the brand, because a brand is always co-created. It's not that the brand only dictates what it stands for, but it interacts with the consumer more and more, because consumers, through social media, through transparency, they have become much more powerful. And that is a new reality for luxury brands, probably, because they were used to, we decide who can buy us, we decide what we mean, we decide the price, and the consumer can be happy if they get access to us. This is changing. And so therefore, I think brands need to be open to what consumers do with their brand in their culture. In a, of course, respectful way. But I'm taking an example of, in the watch industry, for example. Watches which are pure gold are very rarely seen in Switzerland because it's too flashy, it's just over the top. Whilst a Russian oligarch, or also here in Dubai, might love the golden watch because you see gold everywhere. I think in Russia, gold even has a spiritual connotation, that it's the connection to God. So gold, well, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard that from a lady who walked me through the Fabergé Museum, and she told me the story about what gold means in Russian culture. And I found that very interesting, because I thought, well, now I understand why Russian people, for example, are much more conspicuous in their luxury consumption on average. And that helped me to not judge that anymore, but think that now I understand there is meaning and symbolism coming with it. And so I think for a brand, it's very interesting to learn and to we come back to the intrinsic interest in your customers to see what do they do with your brand. So I think it's fine that consumers adopt brands in a different way, as long as the customers also respect where this brand is coming from. And again, here, luxury for me is nothing bad or to frown upon, as long as the behavior of both the luxury consumers and the luxury brands is elegant. And that comes with respect and with values and with real appreciation for one another.